The small trading outpost drifted silently at the edge of known space, far from the protection of any major fleet. David Reed wiped down the counter of his supply shop while watching his daughter Anna stack boxes in the corner. She hummed a tune he had taught her last week, completely unaware that 3 warships had just appeared on the station's long-range sensors. The door chimed, and Tala walked in, her 4 arms carrying various items she had traded that morning. The friendly merchant had become close with David's family over the past year. She set down her goods and clicked her mandibles in what passed for a smile among her people. "Business is good today," she said, her voice like wind chimes. "The harvest season brings many traders." Anna looked up from her boxes and waved. "Miss Tala, I made you something." The child ran over with a piece of paper, showing a crayon drawing of a human girl holding hands with a 4-armed alien. Simple stick figures, but the care in every line was obvious. Tala's 3 eyes glistened as she accepted the gift. "This is beautiful, little one. I will treasure it always." David smiled at the exchange, but his attention kept drifting to the communication panel behind his counter. The station administrator had sent out a quiet alert an hour ago. The Draken Empire was here, and they were not here to trade. The Draken had been expanding their territory for the past decade, swallowing up independent stations and small colonies with ease. Most species surrendered without a fight. The Draken were massive creatures, 8 feet of armored scales and raw strength. Their reputation for brutality preceded them. 3 humans lived on this station, along with 44 others from a dozen species. David had come here after leaving the military, seeking peace and a safe place to raise his daughter. The irony was not lost on him. "Papa, can I go see the ship's dock?" Anna asked, tugging on his sleeve. "Not today, sweetheart. Stay close to the shop." His daughter pouted but obeyed. She had learned to trust his instincts over the years. Children of frontier traders grew up understanding that sometimes adults got quiet and serious for good reasons. The station shuddered slightly as the Draken vessels attached to the docking ports. Within minutes, heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors. David counted them by sound alone, a habit from his old life. At least 80 soldiers, maybe more. Tala's antennae drooped. "They have come for the station. Looks that way. You should take Anna and leave on the next transport." David shook his head. "Last transport left this morning. Won't be another for 3 days." The merchant made a distressed sound. Her people were peaceful by nature, and the thought of violence clearly troubled her. But she did not leave. Instead, she moved closer to Anna, as if her presence could somehow shield the child. Commander Harsk entered the Commerce District with a squad of his best soldiers. The Draken commander stood tall, his scales gleaming under the station lights. He surveyed the shops and their owners with obvious contempt. "This station now belongs to the Draken Empire," he announced. "You will surrender all administrative control within 1 rotation. Any resistance will be met with immediate termination." The various aliens in the district murmured among themselves. Some began packing their belongings right away. Others looked around nervously, hoping someone would object. No one did. A harsh gaze fell on David's shop. He walked over, his clawed feet scraping the metal floor. "A human. How rare. I thought your kind stayed close to your protected worlds." "We go where we want," David replied evenly. The commander laughed, a harsh grating sound. "Such bravery from one so small. Your species has grown soft under the protection of the Confederated systems. You have forgotten what real strength looks like." Maybe. One of the Draken soldiers noticed Anna peeking out from behind the counter. He pointed at her with a clawed finger. "A hatchling. Even more pathetic. Raising young in a place like this shows poor judgment." David's expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. Tala saw it and instinctively moved to place herself between the soldiers and Anna. Harsk circled the shop, examining the supplies. "You have 24 hours to prepare your inventory for Imperial assessment. Everything here will be cataloged and redistributed as we see fit. And if I refuse, then you will learn what happens to those who defy the Empire." The commander turned to leave, but paused at the door. "I suggest you teach your hatchling proper respect. The Empire has no tolerance for insolence, regardless of age." After they left, Tala immediately began securing her shop across the corridor. You must contact your people, David. They need to know what is happening here. Already done. Send a message to military command before those ships even docked. How long until help arrives? 6 days. Maybe 7. The merchant's antennae sagged further. That is too long. The Draken will have full control by then. David walked over to where Anna sat, still clutching her crayons. He knelt down and brushed hair from her face. Hey, little star, I need you to do something for me. What, Papa? I need you to stay in our quarters for a while. No going out to play, no visiting the garden pods. Can you do that? Anna's lower lip trembled. Are the metal people bad? Some people don't know how to be kind. But I promise you will be safe. She hugged him tightly. Will you stay with me? As much as I can. That night, David sent 3 more messages. One to military command with updated intelligence. One to the other 2 humans on the station, both retired soldiers like himself. And one to an old friend who owed him a favor. The message was simple. They threatened the kids. You know what that means. He received 2 replies within the hour. Both said the same thing. On our way. David looked at his sleeping daughter and felt the old instincts rising. He had left the military to escape the violence, to give Anna a peaceful life. But peace only lasted as long as reasonable people maintained it, and the Draken had just proven they were not reasonable. Outside his window, the 3 warships hung in space like sleeping predators. They had no idea what they had just awakened. 20 hours had passed since the Draken issued their ultimatum. Most of the non-human residents had already fled on emergency transports, abandoning their shops and homes without a second thought. The station felt like a ghost town, empty corridors echoing with the heavy footsteps of Draken patrols. David stood in the cargo bay with the only other 2 humans who had remained behind. Robert was a former engineer from the Frontier Wars, now in his 60s but still sharp as broken glass. The other was Christine, a medical officer who had seen more combat than most soldiers. Both had received his message, and both had made the same choice. The kids are secured in the core shelter, Christine reported. Triple locked doors, independent life support. They have food and water for 2 weeks. How many children total? David asked. 5. Anna, 2 from the station administrator's family, and Tala's nephew and niece. Robert pulled up a schematic of the station on a portable display. I have access to environmental controls, gravity plating, and emergency bulkheads. Been working on this place for 3 years. Know every system inside and out. Weapons, whatever the Draken brought with them, plus some tools that can do damage if used creatively. David nodded. The situation was grim by any measure. 3 humans against over 800 Draken soldiers, with reinforcements available from the warships. Mathematically, it was suicide, but mathematics had never accounted for what humans became when their children were in danger. In the station's main plaza, Commander Harsk assembled his troops for a demonstration. He wanted the remaining residents to see Draken power firsthand. Soldiers lined up in formation, their weapons gleaming, their scaled bodies radiating menace. Lieutenant Oren stood beside his commander, watching the display with growing unease. He had fought in 17 campaigns and never once questioned orders. But something about this situation felt wrong. The humans had not fled like other species. They had not begged or negotiated. They had simply gone quiet. Commander, perhaps we should reconsider the occupation timeline, Oren suggested carefully. The humans have contacted their military. Engaging them directly may complicate our expansion plans. Harsk waved a dismissive claw. Human military is 6 days away. We will have complete control long before they arrive. Besides, what can 3 humans do against the might of the Empire? The words had barely left his mouth when the station's lights flickered and died. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Harsk's communicator crackled with confused reports from his soldiers throughout the station. Sir, we have lost main power to sections 4 through 9. Environmental controls are not responding in the docking area. Gravity plating just failed in the barracks level. The commander snarled in frustration. Find the humans. They are sabotaging station systems. One squad located David in a service corridor near the Commerce District. 5 Draken soldiers surrounded him, weapons raised. Their leader stepped forward with confidence. You will restore power immediately, human, or face consequences. David looked at them with an expression that made the soldier hesitate. It was not fear or defiance. It was calculation. He was measuring distances, angles, response times. You were warned, David said quietly. 24 hours ago, I told your commander there was a line. You could take the station. You could take our shops and our cargo. But you could not touch the children. The soldier laughed. Your threats mean nothing. You are one small human against the Draken Empire. I am not threatening. I am informing. Before the soldier could respond, the corridor's gravity reversed. The Draken tumbled upward, slamming into the ceiling with bone-crushing force. David, who had magnetically locked his boots to the floor, remained steady. He released the locks and pushed off, using the confusion to disappear into a maintenance shaft. Throughout the station, similar incidents multiplied. Draken patrols found themselves sealed behind emergency bulkheads. Sections of the station vented atmosphere without warning, forcing soldiers to retreat. Gravity fluctuated wildly, making it impossible to maintain defensive positions. Commander Harsk realized the humans were not trying to fight them directly. They were turning the station itself into a weapon. All units converge on the core shelter, he ordered. If we cannot control the humans, we will control what they value most. The message reached David through Christine, who had tapped into Draken communications. His response was immediate and chilling. Let them come. The Draken force, 200 soldiers strong, marched toward the core shelter. They expected to find frightened children and desperate adults ready to surrender. Instead, they found David standing alone in the corridor, unarmed. Step aside, Hars commanded. Your resistance is pointless. You can still leave, David replied. Take your ships and go. This does not have to end badly. You dare negotiate? You have nothing to bargain with. I have everything. You just do not understand what yet. Hars gestured to his soldiers. Seize him. The soldier who stepped forward reached for David's shoulder. His clawed hand never made contact. David moved with speed that seemed impossible for his size, redirecting the grab into a joint lock that sent the Draken crashing to the floor. In the same motion, he took the soldier's weapon and fired 3 shots, not at the soldiers, at the support struts above them. The ceiling collapsed, tons of metal and machinery creating a barrier between the Draken and the shelter. More importantly, it severed 3 major power conduits. The entire section went dark in the chaos. David's voice echoed through the corridor, amplified by the station's emergency speakers. You touched her. You reached for my daughter. That was your mistake. That was the moment you stopped being an occupying force and became targets. Harsk roared in fury, but David was already gone, vanished into the maintenance tunnels he and Robert had memorized over the past day. The battle for the station had truly begun, and the Draken were about to learn why humans had survived being apex predators on a death world. 72 hours into the occupation, the Draken Empire had lost 347 soldiers. Commander Harsk stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. 3 humans. 3. And they had turned his elite fighting force into a panicked, disorganized mess. The station had become a nightmare. Corridors that should have been secure were death traps. Rooms that appeared empty held hidden threats. Every shadow could conceal an enemy. Every system could turn against them without warning. Robert had become a ghost in the machinery. The old engineer moved through access tunnels and maintenance shafts, appearing behind Draken positions to sabotage equipment or seal off escape routes. He never fired a shot. He did not need to. A station's environmental systems could kill more efficiently than any weapon when used by someone who understood them completely. Christine operated from the medical bay, which she had fortified into a small fortress. Draken soldiers who were injured quickly learned that seeking medical help meant walking into an ambush. She had converted surgical tools into weapons and used her knowledge of alien biology to strike at vulnerable points. The Draken nervous system, she discovered, was particularly sensitive to certain electrical frequencies. David coordinated their efforts while conducting his own campaign of psychological warfare. He appeared on monitors throughout the station, always calm, always watching. He spoke to the Draken soldiers in their own language, which he had learned during his military service. "You are afraid now." His voice echoed through the corridors. "You jump at sounds. You hesitate at corners. You wonder if the next door will open or seal you inside forever. This is what happens when you threaten children. This is what humans become." Lieutenant Oren sat in what remained of the command center, surrounded by nervous soldiers. He had argued with Harsk about retreating to the ships, regrouping, and requesting proper support. The commander had refused, calling it cowardice. "We cannot let 3 humans defeat the Empire," Harsk had snarled. "We will crush them and make an example of their corpses." But Oren had fought enough battles to recognize the truth. They were not fighting 3 random civilians. These were trained soldiers who had chosen this station specifically because they wanted peace. And now that peace was shattered, they had become something else entirely. A young Draken soldier approached Oren's position, his scales pale with fear. "Sir, we found something in the commons area." Oren followed him to discover a makeshift memorial. 3 names were written on the wall in the Draken language, along with their ranks and service records. These are the first Draken soldiers killed in the initial fighting. Below their names, a simple message: "We remember those who die. Do you?" It was a wound deeper than any weapon could make. The Draken prided themselves on strength and conquest, but these humans had stopped in the middle of combat to honor their enemies' dead. It was incomprehensible. It was terrifying. Tala had remained hidden in her shop, using her people's natural camouflage to avoid detection. She watched the Draken patrols become more erratic, more frightened. They fired at shadows. They argued among themselves. The iron discipline of the Empire was cracking. She thought of Anna and the other children safe in the core shelter. David had installed monitors so they could see their parents were still alive, still fighting. The children did not understand the violence, but they understood their families had not abandoned them. On the 4th day, reinforcements arrived. The Draken Empire sent another 1,000 soldiers, certain that overwhelming numbers would end the resistance. Commander Harsk gathered his expanded forces in the docking bay for a final assault on the core shelter. "No more games," he announced. "We breach the shelter, take the human young, and execute them in front of their parents. Then we will see how brave these humans truly are." The words were transmitted across all frequencies, meant to demoralize the defenders. Instead, they triggered something far worse. David heard the threat while helping Robert rewire a power junction. For a moment, he went completely still. Then he activated his communicator. "Christine, Robert, new rules. No more surgical strikes. No more restraint. They just declared war on children." "Understood," came the replies. Within the station systems, Robert initiated protocols he had been holding in reserve. Every remaining Draken soldier found themselves trapped as bulkheads slammed shut throughout the station. Compartmentalized into small groups, isolated from support. Then the oxygen levels began to drop. Not enough to kill, just enough to weaken, to slow their reactions, to make them desperate. David moved through the darkened corridors with purpose now. No more hit-and-run tactics. No more warnings. He had given the Draken every chance to leave. They had chosen to threaten his daughter instead. The first group he found was a squad of 10 soldiers trying to cut through a sealed door. They noticed him too late. David had acquired Draken weapons over the past days, and he used them with brutal efficiency. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. Christine emerged from the medical bay with a squad of damaged maintenance robots she had reprogrammed. They were not designed for combat, but their industrial cutting tools made them effective nonetheless. She directed them toward Draken positions with cold precision. In the command center, Oren made a decision. He accessed the communications array and sent an unauthorized message directly to the Draken homeworld. It contained everything he had witnessed, every casualty report, every detail of how 3 humans had devastated an Imperial occupation force. "They are not what we believed," his message concluded. We attacked their young. We have awakened something that should have remained sleeping. Harsk discovered the transmission and executed Orin on the spot for treason. But the message had already been sent. The Empire would know the truth. As the fourth day turned to night, the station's lights flickered back on. David's face appeared on every monitor, and this time his expression was not calm. It was the look of a father who had heard his child threatened. Surrender now, or I will show you what humans learned from millions of years as prey animals that became predators. You have 1 hour to decide. The Draken had no idea that the human fleet had just entered the system, 3 days ahead of schedule. They were about to learn what happened when humanity received a distress call involving children. Admiral Patricia Walsh stood on the bridge of the battleship Relentless, watching the tactical display with hard eyes. Her fleet had pushed their engines beyond safe limits, jumped through unstable transit points, and cut 3 days off their response time. When the distress signal came through mentioning a child being grabbed by enemy soldiers, every captain in range had volunteered immediately. The human military had protocols for many situations: piracy, territorial disputes, rescue operations. But there was one protocol that superseded all others, one that every service member understood without needing it explained. Amber Protocol. Children in danger. No restrictions on response. Tactical, what are we looking at? Walsh asked. Her officer highlighted the station and surrounding space. 3 Draken warships in defensive position around the station. We are detecting approximately 1,100 life signs aboard the station, mostly Draken. Human signatures number 3, all active and mobile. 3 against 1,100. And they are still fighting? Yes, Admiral. Station systems show signs of extensive sabotage and combat. Draken casualties are estimated at over 400. Walsh allowed herself a grim smile. Whoever those 3 humans were, they had just given the Empire a lesson in why peaceful did not mean harmless. Open a channel to the station. All frequencies. The communication officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. This is Admiral Patricia Walsh of the Human Confederated Fleet. We are here to retrieve our people. Draken forces have one opportunity to surrender the station peacefully and face trial for their actions. You have 10 minutes to respond. Commander Harsk, still aboard the station, received the transmission with contempt. 1 fleet against 3 warships and the Empire's full might? The humans are delusional. His second officer, now a nervous replacement for the executed Orin, checked their sensors. Commander, we are detecting unusual readings. The human fleet is larger than initial scans suggested. How much larger? 40 warships, sir, and more are appearing at the edge of the system. Harsk's confidence wavered. That was not a rescue fleet. That was an invasion force. He activated the emergency beacon, calling for the Empire's battle fleet. They would arrive in 18 hours. He just needed to hold until then. Inform the human admiral that we will not surrender. This station belongs to the Empire now. On the Relentless, Walsh received the response, and her expression hardened. Communications, send a message to all civilian and non-combatant vessels in the area. They have 20 minutes to clear the combat zone. She turned to her weapons officer. Prepare boarding craft. Deploy all Marine divisions. Rules of engagement are Amber Protocol standards. Her staff went silent. Amber Protocol ROE meant one thing: eliminate all threats to the children, accept no surrender until the children are secure, and show no mercy to anyone who resists. Admiral, her executive officer said quietly, that is 12,000 Marines against entrenched positions. We will take casualties. They grabbed a child, Walsh replied. Every Marine on this fleet volunteered for this. They know what it means. Inside the station, David received a coded transmission on his military communicator. He had not used it in years, but the encryption was still valid. The message was brief. Relief force arrived. Prepare for boarding action. Get the kids ready to move. You have done enough. We will take it from here. David felt something release in his chest. They had held for 4 days against impossible odds. Christine had taken shrapnel wounds. Robert was exhausted from constant movement, but they had kept the children safe. That was all that mattered. He activated his link to Christine and Robert. Fleet is here. Marines are coming. We need to secure a landing zone and protect the shelter until they arrive. Where? Christine asked. Docking Bay 7. It is closest to the core and has direct access corridors. The three humans moved with renewed purpose. This was no longer about survival. Now it was about holding the line just a little longer. The Draken had consolidated their forces in the main sections of the station, preparing for the human assault. They did not notice the small group of soldiers trying to reach Docking Bay 7 until it was too late. David, Christine, and Robert fought through the corridors together for the first time. Their coordination was flawless, built on years of military training and 4 days of desperate combat. They covered each other, moved in practice patterns, and struck with precision that a Draken squad tried to block their path. Robert collapsed the ceiling behind them, cutting off reinforcements. Christine used a commandeered weapon to suppress their fire. David moved through the chaos like a shadow, putting down threats before they could respond. They reached the docking bay and immediately began setting up defenses. Emergency barricades, automated turrets from the station's security systems, and carefully placed charges to control the approaches. The first wave of human Marines breached through the hull with cutting torches and shaped charges. They poured into the docking bay in full combat armor, weapons ready. Moving with the discipline of professional soldiers, the lead sergeant spotted David and his battered companions. Recognition flashed across his face. These were not civilians waiting to be rescued. These were fellow soldiers who had held an impossible position. Sergeant Williams, 2nd Marine Division, he said crisply. We are here to relieve you. David Reed, retired. This is Christine Mora and Robert Chun, also retired. The children are secured in the core shelter. Coordinates uploaded to your tactical network. Williams nodded. First priority is securing those children. Second priority is securing the station. Third priority is taking prisoners. You three want to sit this one out. David looked at his companions. Christine checked her weapon. Robert brought up the station schematic one more time. They all wore the same expression. We started this, David said. We finish it. Williams grinned behind his helmet. Welcome back to the fight then. Let us show these Draken what happens when humans go to war. The Marines moved out in coordinated squads, their movements precise and overwhelming. The Draken suddenly found themselves facing not 3 desperate defenders, but thousands of trained killers who had crossed the galaxy for one purpose. The real battle was about to begin, and this time, the humans had no reason to hold back. The assault through the station was not a battle. It was an execution. Human Marines moved in 4-person teams, clearing rooms with textbook precision. The Draken, accustomed to fighting species that fled or surrendered when faced with superior strength, had no answer for enemies who simply would not stop. Commander Harsk watched his forces crumble from the command center. Every report brought worse news. His soldiers were being systematically eliminated, pushed into smaller and smaller pockets of resistance. The humans showed no interest in accepting surrender. Sir, we must evacuate to the ships, his officer pleaded. We can regroup and hold until the battle fleet arrives. Harsk's pride would not allow retreat. Order the warships to fire on the station. If we cannot hold it, the humans will not have it either. The officer stared at him in horror. Commander, our soldiers are still aboard. You would kill our own people. The Empire demands sacrifice. Give the order. The message went out to the 3 Draken warships. But before they could comply, Admiral Walsh had anticipated the move. Her fleet had been positioning itself throughout the engagement, and now that positioning paid off. All ships engage Draken vessels, disable their weapons systems, but leave engines operational. I want survivors to carry word of what happened here. The human warships opened fire with calculated precision. The Draken ships, designed for intimidation and bombardment of defenseless targets, were no match for vessels built by a species that had fought itself for thousands of years before reaching the stars. Within minutes, all 3 Draken warships were crippled, their weapons offline, their crews struggling to maintain life support. The human fleet held position around them, a clear message. You are alive because we allow it. Inside the station, the Marines reached the core shelter. Sergeant Williams personally oversaw the breach, following every safety protocol to ensure no stray shots endangered the children inside. David stood nearby as the doors opened. Anna ran out and crashed into him, crying. He picked her up, holding her tight while she shook. I was so scared, Papa. The metal people said bad things. I know, little star, but you're safe now. You were very brave. Christine reunited with Tala, who had emerged from hiding with her nephew and niece. The alien merchant's antennae trembled with relief as she saw the human Marines securing the area. I told them, she said to Christine. I told the Draken this was a mistake. They would not listen. People rarely do, Christine replied, until it is too late. The children were evacuated first, taken to the fleet's medical ships where they would be checked and cared for. Anna looked back at David as she was carried away, and he gave her a reassuring smile. I will be right behind you. Promise. With the children secured, the Marines shifted to their secondary objective. The remaining Draken soldiers were given one final chance to surrender. Some did, throwing down their weapons and hoping for mercy. Others fought to the end, either out of loyalty or fear of their empire's punishment for failure. Commander Harsk chose to fight. He barricaded himself in the command center with his most loyal soldiers, determined to take as many humans with him as possible. It was a pointless gesture, and everyone knew it. David, Christine, and Robert joined the final assault. The Marines had offered to handle it, but the three defenders felt they had earned the right to be there when it ended. The command center's doors exploded inward under breaching charges. Smoke filled the room as Marines poured through, their weapons tracking targets with mechanical efficiency. The Draken fought back desperately, but they were outmatched in every way. David found Harsk behind an overturned console, the commander's armor scorched and damaged. The Draken looked at him with confusion more than fear. You are just one human, Harsk said. How did you do this? You still do not understand, David replied. It was never about me. It was about what you threatened. You grabbed my daughter. You declared war on our children. That was the moment you stopped being an occupying force and became something we would cross the galaxy to destroy. It was just one child, Harsk insisted. One small human child. Why does it matter so much? David's expression was cold. Because she is our future. Because protecting our young is written into every part of who we are. Because you can take our homes, our stations, our ships, everything we own. But the moment you reach for our children, you learn what humans really are underneath all the civilization and peace. Harsk tried to raise his weapon, but Marines were already moving. The commander fell, and with him, the last organized Draken resistance on the station. Sergeant Williams surveyed the secured command center and activated his communicator. Admiral Walsh, station is secure. All hostiles eliminated or captured. Casualties on our side are minimal. The children are safe. Walsh's response came through clearly. Well done, Sergeant. Begin processing prisoners and prepare for the arrival of the Draken battle fleet. We have one more message to send. In orbit, the crippled Draken warships watched helplessly as more human vessels arrived. Within hours, there were 60 human warships surrounding the station, with more appearing at regular intervals. The Draken battle fleet arrived 18 hours later to find their advance force destroyed and a human armada waiting for them. The fleet admiral received a simple message from Admiral Walsh. You attacked our children. We have secured them. Now you will answer for what you have done. You can surrender peacefully and face trial, or you can fight and be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. Choose wisely. The Draken admiral looked at the overwhelming human presence and felt something his species rarely experienced. True fear. These humans had not come to negotiate or posture. They had come to deliver judgment. And deep in the Draken homeworld, leaders were receiving reports of what had happened at the trading station. Reports that would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. The honey badgers had shown their teeth, and the Empire was about to learn that some prey animals should never have evolved into predators. The Draken battle fleet surrendered without firing a shot. Their admiral was not a fool. 60 human warships with more arriving every hour all carrying soldiers who had just demonstrated what they did to anyone who threatened their young. The choice was simple: face trial or face extinction. The Confederated Systems convened an emergency tribunal within the week. Representatives from 24 species gathered to witness the proceedings. Commander Harsk and his surviving officers stood in chains before judges from neutral worlds. The evidence was presented methodically. Station logs showing the initial occupation. Communication records of the Draken ultimatum. Security footage of the moment a Draken soldier grabbed Anna's arm to pull her away from David. That footage played on screens throughout the galaxy. A small human child being roughly handled by an armored soldier 3 times her size. Her father's face as he watched it happen. The cold fury that replaced his careful diplomacy. Tala testified about what she had witnessed. The humans gave warnings. They asked the Draken to leave peacefully. They only fought when their children were directly threatened. What came after was not aggression. It was protection taken to its absolute conclusion. The Draken Empire's representative tried to argue that the response was disproportionate. 3 humans had killed over 600 Draken soldiers. The human fleet had crippled 3 warships without provocation. Admiral Walsh stood to respond. She was not a diplomat, and her words reflected that. You call our response disproportionate? Your commander threatened to execute children. Not soldiers, not combatants. Children. If you believe we should have responded with less force, then you fundamentally misunderstand what humanity is. She activated a display showing Earth's history. Images of ancient tribes defending their young. Medieval armies rallying to protect besieged cities. Modern soldiers storming fortified positions to rescue hostages. We're a species that evolved on a death world. Everything on our planet wanted to kill us. We survived because we protected our young with absolute ferocity. That instinct did not disappear when we reached the stars. It is part of our genetic code. You do not threaten human children and expect a measured response. You threaten our children, you get war. Total war. Uncompromisingva. The tribunal deliberated for 3 days. In the end, the Draken Empire was found guilty of initiating unprovoked aggression against a neutral station and specifically guilty of threatening non-combatant children. The reparations were severe. The Empire would pay for the station's reconstruction, compensate the families affected, and reduce their military by half. Furthermore, any future Draken aggression against human civilians would be treated as an act of total war. But that was not the end of it. 2 weeks after the tribunal, the Draken Empire made their final, fatal mistake. Emboldened by support from a few sympathetic species who feared human military power, they launched a retaliatory strike against a human agricultural colony. The target was chosen specifically: a small settlement, minimal defenses, maximum civilian population. The Draken believed this would force humanity to back down, to show they were not willing to protect every distant outpost. They targeted the settlement school. 200 children died in the bombardment. The galaxy watched in horror as the news spread. Not because of the deaths, though those were tragic enough, but because everyone who had been paying attention knew what came next. Humanity declared total war on the Draken Empire. Every ship, every soldier, every resource the human military could muster was mobilized within 48 hours. 18 full battle fleets converged on Draken space from multiple directions. This was not the careful, measured response at the trading station. This was not about securing prisoners or following rules of engagement. This was about sending a message written in fire and wreckage. The campaign lasted 3 months. The human fleets moved through Draken space like a force of nature, systematically dismantling every military installation, every shipyard, every defensive position. The Draken Empire's military ceased to exist. When the Draken homeworld was finally blockaded, the human fleet commander sent one message to the planetary government: "You killed our children. You cannot comprehend what you have unleashed. Surrender unconditionally or your world burns." The Empire surrendered. Completely. Absolutely. Without condition or negotiation. The peace terms were brutal. The Draken Empire was dissolved. Their military was permanently disbanded. Every weapon beyond basic defensive equipment was confiscated and destroyed. War reparations that would take 3 generations to pay. But most importantly, the galaxy enacted new laws. Attacking human children was now classified as an act of total war. Any species that committed such an act would face the full might of human military power with no restrictions on response. David returned to the trading station 6 months after it all ended. The station had been rebuilt better than before. New residents were moving in, but there was a wariness now. Everyone who came here knew the story. They knew what had happened when the Draken got too confident. Anna played in the commons area with Tala's nephew and niece, drawing pictures and laughing. She did not remember much of the violence. Children were resilient that way. But she remembered feeling safe even when she was scared, because she knew her father would protect her. Tala reopened her shop across from David's. Business was good. Traders from across the galaxy came to see the station where 3 humans had held off an army. Where humanity had shown what they really were beneath the peaceful exterior on the wall of the commons area, a new plaque had been installed. It was written in 23 languages, representing every major species in the Confederated systems. Protected space, children present, by galactic law and human covenant. Below it, in smaller text, on this station, 3 humans defended 5 children against 800 soldiers. They held for 4 days. They lost no children. Remember this when you wonder why humans demand respect for their boundaries. Admiral Walsh visited the station during its reopening ceremony. She found David in his shop, organizing inventory while Anna helped. "You started something," Walsh told him. "The whole galaxy is reassessing how they view us." "I just protected my daughter," David replied. "You did. And in doing so, you reminded everyone why Earth needed apex predators. Why we evolved to be protective, territorial, and absolutely uncompromising when it comes to our young." She looked at Anna, who waved cheerfully before going back to her work. "The Draken called us weak because we value compassion and peace. They learned too late that we are peaceful because we know what we are capable of. We have been fighting ourselves for our entire history. Fighting others is just applying old lessons to new targets." David nodded. "Do you think they will remember? For a few generations at least. Long enough for the lesson to stick." Walsh left, and David returned to his quiet life. The galaxy had changed. Humanity's reputation had shifted from peaceful traders to something more complex. They were still compassionate, still preferred diplomacy to war. But now everyone knew the line that could not be crossed. Now everyone understood what happened when you threatened a human child. The honey badgers of Earth had reminded the galaxy of an ancient truth. The most dangerous creatures are not the ones who look fierce. They are the ones who look harmless until you threaten what they love. And humanity loved nothing more than their children.